It's a damn bird again, man.
誰もがエレンは変わったという私もそう思った。でもそれは違うのかもしれない。
Wow. 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 Whoa.
エレンは最初から何も変わっていない。あれがエレン本来の姿だとしたら、エレンの何を見ていたのだろう。
Oh. Oh. Oh my god, it is, isn't it? Oh, it is.
本当に壁の外にも街があって人が住んでるんだな。
壁の外とか他人の前で言うんだよ。
Keep it on the DL, man.
分かってるって。
これが壁外大陸。
Oh.
私たちが壁外の地を踏む初の壁内人類。
So loud. Oh, look at this.
元より我々に課せられた仕事と言える。調査開始だ。
Let's go scout. Oh my god, I've been asking for this. I've been asking for this.
あの馬。
牛じゃないですか。
Some sort of
そういう
cow.
牛ですよ。
Oh, Sasha.
聞いたろう来る前に。おーい。まずいよ。見られてる。
奴らを止めねえと鉄の塊に人参食わせようとするぞ。
Look at Heicho.
まさか。
すごい人の数。ねえエレン、何があるかわからないから私のそばを離れないで。エレン。何をぼんやりしてるんだよ、エレン。
Yeah, I was gonna say he's zoning out
世
there.
界にいるんだよ。
これが海の
Other side of the sea.
なんだよ
これください。
毎度あり。
Oh my god. Yeah. Ice cream.
お前また勝手に。
Oh, this is going to rock her to her core.
俺にも一口。
アイスクリーム。
I've missed out voice acting, man.
なんだこれ。
Ugh. Oh, what the?
かっこいいね。ちびっこギャング
Jeez,
かな。
that was so creepy.
ニコロが言ってるやつかもな。
This is just like.
後道ください。
Oh.
知ってたの？
親父の記憶で知ってるだけだ。収容区の LDA 人はめったに食えない。
私たちは気づかなかった。もしく
Wow.
は
Yeah, this
気づ
is.
きたくなかったのだろう。
Hmm.
それだ。このガキ。また敵国の移民か。ここ
Ah.
に来た。
Oh boy.
紛れ込んできたんだろう。言葉が通じてないな。海に放り投げるってのはどうだ。
いや、右手をへっしょってやろうぜ。二度とすりができないよ。何よりユーミルの民かもしれねえ。
ここ数年島の国も血液検査に躍起になってるからな。
Whoa.
悪魔の血がその辺に紛れてちゃ夜も眠れたもんじゃねえよ。おい、あんた何をしている。
Heicho.
誰がスリだと言った？
Yeah.
その
Whoa.
ようなことがありましたか。あなたは自分が敵の最重要目標だってことが分かっているの？
戦争で居場所をなくした人たちが集まって暮らしている。俺たちもそうだった。ある日突然日常が終わって何もかもが奪われた。全ての自由を奪われるんだ。
Call of silence. Oh my god.
お前はどうして俺のことを気にかけてくれるんだ？子供の頃、俺に助けられたからか、それとも俺は家族だからか。俺はお前のなんだ？
あなたは家族。
She wasn't able to. Wow, that was incredible.
バカじゃねえのか。
ちょうどよかった。
Wow. Eren picked it up first. Ah, that's the quick flash I saw. Oh, Sasha and Mikasa. Wow. Whoa. This was so necessary, man. I was asking for this. You know, I'm happy for Eren right now. A slight pause. A slight moment of happiness for him. Wow. Yeah, imagine sitting there. Oh.
あの日から
Ah. He's heard enough.
彼から届いた手紙にはジークに全てを委ねると記され
There it is.
次に顔を合わせた時にはもう手遅れだった。果たして他に選ぶべき選択肢があっただろうか。全ては最初から決まっていたのかもしれない。それでも考えてしまう。あの時もし私が別の答えを選んでいたら
I mean, of course she was thinking it, but she couldn't quite say it.
結果
Wow.
違っていたんじゃないかって。
I mean, that's the question, eh?
どこからが始まりだろう。あそこか。
Oh, the pigs.
いやどこでもいい。すべては俺が望んだこと。すべてはこの先にある。
Look at this shot.
脊髄液入りのワインは改革の障害となる兵団上層部の
Yes, there he is. As expected.
あなたを信じています。
俺はジークの計画に従うふりをする。お前もそうしろ。憲兵団はお前を巨人にして
Oh.
島に来たジークを食わせる計画を進めている。
他に方法は
They're not showing her face, eh?
でもあの時エレンが私をかばってくれて
There it
みんなが
is.
動いてくれたから私はそれで十分だよ。
お前が良くても俺は違う。世界を滅ぼすすべての敵をこの世から
Oh. Oh.
一匹残らず
Yeah.
駆逐する。
そんなの間違ってる。島の外の人すべてが敵じゃないのに、あなたのお母さんみたいに突然なんで殺されるのかわからない人がほとんどなんだよ。
分かってる。でも憎しみによる報復の連鎖を完全に終結させる唯一の方法は憎しみの歴史を文明ごとこの世から葬り去ることだ。親子同士を食わせ続けるような真似は俺がさせない。
あなたを何としてでも止めないと二度と胸を張って生きていくことができない。
耐え難いなら始祖の力で記憶を操作する。
Whoa.
それまでお前が黙っていれば
そんなこと
できるさ。お前はあの時俺を救ってくれた。世界一悪い子なんだから。
その行為には正体も習性もやむにやまれる理由もない。ただお前のためなら巨人をひねり倒せるくらい
Yeah?
お前のことが好きなだけだ。
Wow.
エレン、
でお前はどう答える？
俺は長生きしてもあと4年しかないんだぞ。
私が子供を作るの。
Wow, this sequence has been. Oh. It reminds me of season 1. His fight against Annie. That one shot.
ずっとあいつらの人生は続いてほしい。ずっと。幸せに生きていけるように。
Yeah.
世界連合艦隊
Whoa, okay.
この地球上に存在しうる最も巨大な大砲のほぼ全てが
Still not going to be enough,
ここ
man.
に集結した。
Commander Pixis said something similar, right? back in season 1.
地ならしよ
Wow. Wow. Iconic score kicking in. Whoa. Yeah. Whoa. Whoa. There's a quick shot of that in the opening, right? Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say call back to episode 1. Wow.
駆逐してやる
Wow. Shh. It's like a carbon copy of episode 1 and the Colossal. Jeez, that just flew by, man. Wow, that is some imagery. That is some dark imagery right there. Haunting imagery. Okay. Yeah. You know, I've got to say, that finale was much stronger than the part 1 finale. You know, the part 1 finale, again, you know, this is just my opinion. I know many of you disagree, but, you know, for me, that finale kind of peaked right in the beginning of the episode, essentially. Right, Zeke and the founder Ymir. And the rest of the episode just kind of felt like a regular episode, right? That it could have been any episode from, you know, that span of 16 episodes, really. Maybe not some of the earlier episodes, though, of course, you know, the first half of part 1 is just, I mean, yeah, actually, I take that back. The first half of part 1 is just incredible, isn't it? The stakes of that, you know, arc, essentially, in Liberio. But yeah, but you know, in that sense, as I'm on the topic, you know, some of the first half episodes easily surpassed the part 1 finale, you know, for sure. But here, you know, it's a bit different. I mean, here, it's an impactful finale. I mean, this finale is perhaps one of the best episodes of the series, right? I'd say it's got to be easily in my top... Yeah, I was about to say top 15, but... There's a lot of episodes, and there's a lot of incredible episodes of Shingeki. You know, I'm not able to say at the moment that it's, you know, top 10. I mean, yeah, I feel like that wasn't really even a thought in my mind, you know, to call it a top 10. This is my opinion, of course. You know, for many of you, it might be in your top 10, top 5, perhaps the best episode of Shingeki, right? All a matter of perspective and opinion. For me, it's a great episode. It's a fantastic finale, right? It did everything a finale at this point of the story should be doing, right? You know, it perfectly encapsulated the main theme of Shingeki, right? It kind of brought it all together by the end of the episode. You know, one last look at our Eren Yeager. One last look. It felt like a goodbye to Eren Yeager. And as you know, I've been hoping for this type of episode. I actually thought, you know, there's a possibility I could get something like this in the next part. And I say that because even by the end of this episode, it feels like there's still quite a bit that I need from the story in terms of things that already happened, right? Of course, a major aspect of this final part, I mean, in that sense, you know, it's getting a bit silly at this point. You know, this part 1, part 2 has been called the final season, but now, you know, it's about to get into the final season, you know, part 3. Though, of course, I'm guessing they're not going to market it or, you know, brand it the final season part 3, right? Then it really starts getting a bit silly. You know, I'm guessing it's going to be more of like a Attack on Titan or Shingeki no Kyojin conclusion, right? The conclusion, the final arc. I mean, no, none of that final stuff, I guess, because they already kind of used it for part 1 and part 2, the final season. Yeah, I think something like, you know, Shingeki no Kyojin, the conclusion. Something like that. Of course, they kind of have to, you know, market it in a different manner at this point. Unless, of course, they didn't really, you know, plan that far ahead and they actually didn't realize that it's going to take them a bit more than 2 parts to conclude the story. That's a possibility, but you'll have to let me know if you have any more insight in terms of the titles or the naming scheme. You know, I actually would have preferred season 4 and then, you know, this final part that's going to come out in 2023, call that season 5, the final season, right? Because, you know, season 4 is massive. It's massive. Episode 28 at this point. right? That's incredible. In that sense, just thinking back to it, I mentioned part one just now. Wow, it's going to be incredible to go back to it. To go and kind of go through every single episode again of part one. Wow. Though of course, it'll be incredible to hopefully do an entire rewatch before part five, the final season, the conclusion. I think I have plenty of time, though of course, it's easier said than done. Because time is a tricky thing, isn't it? You think you have a lot of time, but you really don't. You really don't. But yeah, let's see how it plays out. As of this point, it is my goal to go through the entire series before the conclusion of the series in 2023. And of course, that includes some of the specials, the Lost Girls specials. I certainly want to try and do those in the lead up to the final season in 2023. It's one of those stories that really allows you to go back to, day one, to page one, to episode one, and really, kind of look at it through a different lens after having experienced the rest of the series, after being caught up, right, to the most recent episode. And, good stories, good writing can allow for that. There's a distinct feeling, isn't there? Sometimes you just know for a fact that, okay, I've seen the show and I really have no need or urge to ever go back to a show, right? Because you got everything you needed from it and it doesn't really feel like you're going to get much out of it on a rewatch other than just, if you really enjoy a show and you really want to experience it again. But something like Shingeki, yes, you can get so much out of a rewatch for a story like this. But let's get back into the episode, right? This episode, this finale, this felt like a big deal. It was an important episode from so many different angles. Like I mentioned, almost kind of like a goodbye to Eren. One final look at Eren, right? Before you see the thing he became, right? Or he becomes, and is going to be essentially for the conclusion. Though, like I mentioned, there's still a lot of stuff that I kind of need to see. I mean, yes, this part 5, the final season, the conclusion, most of it is going to focus on this newly formed alliance trying to take down Eren Yeager, though of course by the end of it, he's the devil of Paradis, right? He really is a devil of Paradis. It's going to be, focused around them trying to put a stop to this, the stampede of the Titans, the rumbling. But of course, there's still a lot of, unanswered questions. There's still room for a lot of plot points that need to be concluded and explored, right? And given meaning to, right? I'm certainly expecting a bit of that as well, right? Surely, hopefully it's not just an entire final season of them just, fighting the stampede of the Titans or trying to stop it. But circling back to the conclusion of this episode, the incredible conclusion, the jaw-dropping conclusion, like I mentioned, some stunning imagery, right? The scale of it all is just insane, right? They really sold the apocalyptic nature of it all, right? They really make clear that nothing can survive this, right? No one can survive this. These warships are, kind of getting tossed and flipping over like paper boats, right? The scale of this is just immense, right? Devastating. This miracle fleet, this combined global effort, right? Humanity's final stand, right? The front lines of it. They get absolutely decimated here. There's some that one moment as the Titans kind of swim under, and of course, I get confirmation that indeed they are swimming. That imagery is still a bit jarring, to see these colossal Titans kind of swimming, but of course, it kind of goes back to that notion of them being really light, right? Again, a lot of things go back to season 1, right? Hanji and her experiments, but not only are they swimming, right? They're swimming at an alarmingly quick speed, and it catches them off guard, right? You see the one, again, it's kind of like haunting imagery as one of them kind of swims under this warship, and warships are meant to be just massive, right? But then you see in comparison just one colossal Titan swimming under, and the heat that emanates, that it gives off, absolutely just boils the water, and you see that everyone on board, they disintegrate in a poof of smoke. So yeah, it's devastating. As expected, it's devastating. And I love that one frame, right? It's like a pan of some of these soldiers. The facial animation, the drawing itself. Wow. it really stood out. It really stood out. The expressions on their faces. You could see that a lot of care was given to that scene, right? That pan shot or that drawing. And, beyond its devastating nature, the rumbling, the stampede of the Titans, there's a lot of parallels there, right? Episode 1 is a major one. From many different angles, of course, that imagery of Eren, Carla getting eaten by the infamous smiling Titan, Dinah Fritz. So it was really interesting to see that imagery once again under Studio Mappa this time, right? Mappa. You'll have to let me know if I'm pronouncing that right. And of course, there's parallels to the Colossal Titan, Bertolt's Colossal Titan in episode 1, that shadow that looms above the town and the houses. It's a carbon copy, right? But this time, Marley and everyone else is reminded of, the terror of being at their mercy, right? Or his mercy. This is hell on earth, right? And the devil of Paradis himself has brought the footsteps of doom to their doorstep, right? And he's here to collect the toll, because this feels like the sum of everything that's kind of transpired in this cycle of hatred, right? And Eren Yeager feels like this is the only path, right? As he mentions to Historia, that it's too far gone at this point. And of course, speaking of the Devil of Paradis, I get to see the final form. Though of course it might not actually be the final form. Who knows? There is another part. Maybe I might get to see yet another form of Eren in his Titan form. But as of this point, this is his form, right? The founding Titan, or founding Eren Titan, or Eren Annihilation Titan. And I see a glimpse of this in the opening, don't I? At least the outer structure. But the face, holy shit, the size of this. The size of Eren's founding Titan is just insane. It's almost incomprehensible. But first impressions, you see that it's almost kind of like a puppet, right? From one angle, you could kind of look at Eren, right, his founding Titan form, as a puppet master controlling the Colossal Titans. Then also you could see him as the puppet himself, right? I feel like the imagery there is kind of unmissable, right? To me, it kind of felt like, it's a depiction of control for sure, right? Eren kind of in control of the Colossal Titans, but then also there is a depiction of being controlled. I really do feel like, Isayama-san has kind of depicted this in a manner that does make him look like a puppet himself, a pawn. That he himself is also a puppet or a slave to this deterministic path he's been on, right? That even if he's been trying to kind of see a different angle, a different path, all roads kind of lead to this, or have led to this, no matter how badly he wanted to deviate, right? And there's moments in this episode that he hopes perhaps that it deviates, right? He must have felt like that for the longest time, that this future, the glimpses of the future he's seen, feel like a person that he does not recognize, and it scares him, right? In fact, it traumatized him. And, this whole notion, this idea of Chad Eren, right? Since part 1, I've seen this angle, right? I've seen it in the comments. I've seen just, him described as Chad Eren. Ultimately, all of that feels like a surface level facade, this moniker, and I feel like, I'm not taking a dig at anyone, please don't take it like that. But this is my opinion on the matter, him being labeled Chad Eren, right? That is a moniker a lot of people have kind of, given to Eren since part 1. I feel like a lot of that kind of comes from, again, like I mentioned, the physical appearance, right? There's certainly quite a physical transformation. He's quite the specimen, that's for sure. And that whole, nothing else matters attitude that I don't care about anyone, even my loved ones who I've kind of pushed aside. Though, of course, all of us know that, he did all of that for a reason. And, as of this point, it's even more clear that indeed, beneath it all, there is an individual that is just broken, a broken individual, right? A traumatized individual, someone who has suffered tremendously, right? So much self-loathing on display, and you see it once again in this episode as well. And so much so that I think, some of that self-harm, self-mutilation, right, on the battlefield almost kind of feels like punishment, that he's punishing himself. And of course, that scene in itself, it bridges that gap, doesn't it? Showing us just how he ends up in Liberio at the hospital, right? Of course, there's that purpose as well. that he does need to appear to be an injured soldier, right? So yeah, there's that. But I also do feel like there's a lot of self-loathing and self-harm and punishment that's being depicted here. I mean, of course, there's that angle, right? He does need to land himself at the hospital in Liberio. So, some of these self-inflicted injuries certainly play a part. But I also feel like beyond that, you could tell that there is certainly a sense of, self-harm, self-loathing, self-hatred, punishing oneself. That's my take on it, at least. That he feels like he deserves this. And this whole notion of self-loathing for Eren, you see that he cannot even allow himself for even a split second to think that someone like Mikasa can actually love him, right? How could someone like Mikasa or anyone love him, given the things he's going to do, right? Or he has done, the monster he believes himself to be. How can anyone love him? And speaking of Mikasa, I feel like this episode right here might be the most important episode for Mikasa as a character, and how things are going to play out from this point on, and her, thoughts on it all, her trying to deal with all of this, right? Trying to make sense of all of this. And, it begins in the post-credit scene from the last episode. It begins by Annie, asking her once again, so I ask you once again, can you kill Eren? Right? Can you allow us to kill Eren once the time comes? And, I really, really appreciate the focus on Mikasa, right? The development here is just fantastic. But, it's nothing new. This identity crisis, this internal struggle, it's been going on for a few episodes now, right? The last few episodes, actually, post From You 2,000 years ago, right? Episode 5 of this part 2. And speaking of From You 2,000 years ago, that incredible score, right? That incredible score plays a major part here, right? As it kind of takes us through Eren's progression, leading up to the Stampede in the finale of this. And, as I'm on the topic of the Stampede of the Titans, the Footsteps of Doom, you go back to the season 2 ending, right? One of the most iconic moments of the series, essentially. Some of that imagery is present right here, right? You see some of the footsteps. Because of the footsteps of doom, essentially, you see some of the Titans in a line, in a row, right? Entering a city. I mean, yes, of course, that is meant to be a depiction from the past, but it resembles this so much, doesn't it? Right? History repeating itself, essentially. But, of course, as of this point, it's so clear that Mikasa is going to play a major part in the conclusion of this series. In that sense, it really does feel like Jon Snow and Daenerys, doesn't it? And, through characters like Annie, you do have the question being asked, once the time comes, if the time comes, can you do it, right? Can you do it, or can you allow others to do it? It's kind of unmissable at this point, right? So, Mikasa being in the focus, I think this is really necessary. And I love how, this kind of continues that whole relationship she has with Eren, a complicated one for sure. And, that moment, it's an incredible moment, right? Accompanied by the call of silence. Wow, that gave me goosebumps. Just Eren and Mikasa as he asked her that question. The question itself is quite staggering for Mikasa. It's certainly a tricky one. It catches her off guard. She's quite flustered. And it's not a question she's actually able to even answer, really. It's a tricky one. It is, because ultimately I feel like even Mikasa still hasn't completely deciphered her true feelings for Eren. Of course, us, the audience, knows that it's romantic love that she feels for Eren. But, she herself, it's almost as if, her saying, because your family is kind of like this blanket, this safety net that she's always had, right? But, that being said, you go back to the season 2 finale, right? One of the standout moments of the series in terms of the Eren and Mikasa relationship, so much so that Eren himself kind of acknowledges, her kind of sharing her feelings at that moment in time, because she thought they're about to die, and her true feelings kind of come out, or she feels the need to confess her true feelings at that moment in time. And yeah, Eren acknowledges it, right? It's a rare moment. Yes, it's a rare moment, but that whole, I'll wrap the scarf around you as many times as you want. At that point in time, that's all that was needed. That's all that was needed. But here, she wasn't able to quite come out with a definitive statement. And you see that a lot of this episode kind of focuses on Mikasa, kind of thinking back to key moments. Could things have been different? Could they have taken a different path, a different route, right? A different option, right? She's kind of going through memory lane. And this moment, she questions it, right? It's playing over and over in her head. If I had replied differently, could things have been different, right? But then you kind of go to the flip side, Eren asking that question in the first place, and then of course it kind of plays out a bit later. Once again they take us to that infamous conversation essentially in the Liberia hospital. I love how throughout season 4, be it part 1 and part 2, it goes back to that conversation, and it kind of it's kind of like a drip feed of different elements of that conversation that played out. And this one was kind of actually even kind of wholesome, right? I don't know if everyone's gonna agree, but I felt that aspect of a big brother kind of telling his younger brother, or answering this question about a woman that loves him essentially, but he's still kind of not too sure about it all, right? I loved how Zeke was able to kind of provide some kind of insight, and you see in some of his the way he's kind of drawn that he liked that quite a bit. He loved doing that for Eren, right? And all of us know that Zeke's always kind of yearned for that familial connection so much, and it was a bit of a heartbreaking moment because he thought he found that finally through Eren Yeager, his younger half brother, but it wasn't meant to be. But in that moment, you see that he was more than happy to provide an explanation for this. I mean, ultimately, to Zeke, it was crystal clear, essentially. Yes, he offers a technical explanation at first, and of course, it's some insightful exposition in terms of the Ackerman, right? Levi and Mikasa, right? This awakening, essentially, a reflex to protect their hosts, right? But he almost immediately kind of, pushes that to the side and tells them, I think this is a simple case of this person just really liking you that much, right? They appreciate you that much that they are, able to and open to just ripping apart Titans for you, right? That's how much you mean to them. But again, I brought up that idea, that notion of Eren not even being able to, comprehend that someone could love him, right? He still kind of struggles with that someone could love him in that aspect. And, I really loved that moment as Zeke is kind of, legitimately interested in how Eren is going to, approach this. But of course, Eren told him, I mean, come on, I only have 4 years. There's nothing much to say about this. And, his mindset is all about, making sure to use these final years and make sure that his loved ones, right, get to live on and have happy, long lives, essentially. And, again, I think I brought up in one of my discussions, yes, Eren Yeager himself is selfish, much like a lot of the other people in this story, much like everyone, right? Human nature. I mean, his only aim at this point in time is ensuring and aiming for their survival, his loved ones, right? Giving them long lives, happy lives, long after he's gone, right? And he specifically mentions that to Zeke. And to me, that kind of almost feels like foreshadowing that, they're kind of already telling us that he completely expects to die and he knows he's going to die, right? Unless I'm reading too much into that. Because it sounded like he's pretty sure he's going to, die. But the thing is, he hasn't considered their wishes on this, right? He's decided for them. He's made that choice, right? Like he told Reiner all that time ago, exactly like I thought, or just as I thought, I'm just like you. Because of course, Reiner had his own selfish desires. Eren has his own selfish desires and reasoning for doing the things he's doing. I mean, I say that, but it is that deterministic angle to it all, right? That choice was made at a different point, essentially, by a different Eren, right? If you know what I mean. And this Eren is kind of just, even if he kind of struggles at first, and rightfully so, right? Given the nature of it all, ultimately, this is the path. Ultimately, this is going to happen as it was always meant to happen. It's kind of like the ink is dry, it's set in stone, the future is set, as Grisha Yeager also mentioned, because of course, Grisha Yeager got the glimpses of the future, and through Grisha Yeager, this Eren got glimpses of the future. Now, again, it remains to be seen how much of it he got, right? Um, maybe there's an implication here, or it is being implied that maybe he has seen this moment. Maybe he knows Mikasa's answer, right? And maybe he's kind of testing it out. Much like how, if you go back to Sasha, right? He asked Connie if she said anything before dying. It's almost as if there's a little test every now and then that he kind of puts out there to test this, right? Long before part 2, before any of this came to, that he does have memories of the future, officially at least, I remember making the point that, it's starting to feel like he does have some memories, or he does have some visions of the future, some insight, some foresight, right? And to me, it was really clear, or it was becoming really clear from that Sasha death incident and any last words incident, right? Him having the same type of reaction to Hannes dying, that fit of laughter after finding out that indeed nothing changed, and that clearly he heard Sasha's last words, or he remembered that that's the thing she said. And of course, to people like Connie and even others, it might have felt quite disrespectful. But again, all of us know, the audience knows that, it was him trying to cope, right? And again, after that fit of laughter, there is that anger in his face. That was one of the things, remember, in season 4, part 1, he had a really, base level expression on his face, really depressed, again, broken on the inside. But it was really unique and important anytime he did kind of emote, be it anger, be it this, fit of laughter, though it had an entire different meaning for him. But here's the thing about a different response, as Mikasa herself was also thinking about it, if she had answered differently. I just mentioned, it's essentially the block universe theory, right? That everything, the past, present, future is happening at the same time. It's set in stone. It was not going to change anything, right? I don't know. It's one of those things. It's kind of putting us, the audience, in that position, putting us into Mikasa's mindset, in her head, thinking of that. If she had answered differently, could she have changed the trajectory of these things, or of how things played out? But the thing about this what if situation, and if she had responded differently, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Because they've shown us just how exactly things are playing out, or they were meant to play out. He knew through Grisha's memories that, he does initiate the rumbling, Stampede of the Titans, right? So, I don't know, man. It's certainly an interesting one to think about. I personally think that's a bit too much to put on Mikasa in her response to this. That if she had, told him her true feelings, if she was able to kind of, decipher and kind of articulate those true feelings at that moment in time, it might have changed the trajectory of all of this. I don't know, man. That's putting a lot on Mikasa. It really is. Regardless, they showed us. They showed us that, the future is set in stone. This was always meant to happen. I guess it's one of those things that's always going to be kind of debated for the rest of the series, right? Because, it's certainly intriguing to, put that out there through Mikasa herself, asking that question. If she had responded differently, could things have been different? It certainly gives us, the audience, an intriguing question for years to come, right? An alternative possibility, essentially. But, I feel like, I don't know, man, that's a bit too much to put on Mikasa. That her response here was kind of like the pivot to all of this, right? That's my stance on it. But, leading up to that scene, you see Eren is quite upset. You see the one tear rolling down his face. And, one of his responses to Mikasa, nothing yet. Yeah, you could tell that he's quite upset. He knows that, this area, these people, they are going to die, essentially. He knows this, right? And you see through some of the subtle facial animation, and that was one of the major aspects of this, Mikasa noticing Eren, kind of zoning out, his reaction to a lot of these things. And again, him saying perfect timing as Sasha, Connie, and Jean show up. He has such a stoic look on his face as these things are playing out, right? Even as he asked the question to Mikasa, I felt that it was quite stoic, almost as if he's kind of seen it, but again, it's impossible to know if he actually saw this moment a glimpse of this moment, right? Glimpses of the future or memories of the future, because he's only seen some things. They confirmed the story itself has kind of confirmed that he hasn't seen everything. He's only seen a few things, glimpses of a few things, handpicked things essentially that were shown to Grisha, and through Grisha, Eren's younger self kind of saw those memories as well. And again, that was another component of this episode, him just being so depressed and broken up about all of this, that he knows how things are going to play out, and he knows these people, these refugees essentially, they're just like him and his people essentially, people who lost their freedom, yet they are also going to die nonetheless by his own hands, essentially. And that whole aspect of the migrants, and you see the attitude some of these Marleyans have towards a young child, right? Again, who's clearly a migrant, a refugee. You see the refugee camp. They're kind of depicted as these Middle Eastern. I mean, you see some of that fear on display. You see some of that hatred, right? That some of these refugees or these migrants are leeches. You see that Isayama-san is not shying away from any of it, right? Some of the commentary here, though, it's quite noticeable that they are meant to be Middle Eastern, right? Yet you see that they are kind of partaking in alcoholic beverages, so that's certainly a choice. But this is not this is not me condemning anything. This is a fictional reality. Religion is different. Clearly it's different, but the depiction of these people, I mean, you see some of the attire, right? And the skin tones, the hijab is on display for sure. So it was a bit of a strange sight, or an interesting sight to say the least, to see individuals that look like that taking part or partaking in alcoholic beverages, right? But that scene in itself, I think that was one of the most beautiful and incredible scenes of the entire series. To see Eren happy for a moment in time, that was just, it felt so fulfilling, right? Of course, it's coursing with melancholy. I mean, it's bittersweet. It's really quite sad. But for one moment in time, Eren was able to kind of, escape that torturous knowledge, that foresight, that constant struggle of knowing that these people are going to die, that he's going to do something monstrous, and there's no escape from it. No matter how many times he tries to, look for different angles, different ideas, but for a moment in time he gets to escape. And that one shot of him, it's a close-up of him, and he's certainly happy in that moment, and he's looking at Armin and Mikasa also happy, right? I thought that was incredible. I thought that was one of the most beautiful moments of the entire series. Just the whole scene itself, these different people kind of coming together, and notice how Eren is the one who initiates it by taking the first drink, making the first move, accepting their hospitality, because you see there is a lot of hesitation from the others. So I thought it was a lovely moment, Eren accepting the drink and kind of initiating this fun night, memorable night, something they all kind of deserved, including Eren. And of course, speaking of these really wholesome and fun moments, the first quarter of the episode really leans into it, doesn't it? And yeah, that was just wow. Again, so lovely to see Sasha and to experience Sasha's voice acting once again. It really was quite fantastic. And again, it's a parallel to young Gabby at the fair, and Udo and Falco and Sophia, all of them. And of course, Heicho, he recognizes this behavior. He kind of saw a bit of himself in that child, right? I mean, he immediately realizes that, okay, this kid is kind of pickpocketed Sasha just now because, again, he knows all about that, growing up underground as well, having to survive. But he does also have that understanding, right? Perhaps a reasoning for this. And, he does, even though he does out him at first, he does help him escape. He helps him get out of there. And of course, he kind of pickpockets Heicho, and you see that he doesn't care. He lets the young child go off because, of course, he understands all of this. So I thought it was a great moment to kind of have that in there. And another major aspect of this is, the flashbacks. And I love how through these flashbacks, be it, him and Yelena, him and Flock, him and Historia, him and Zeke, you see that it's a different version of Eren throughout these flashbacks. The specific version he feels is necessary for that individual. You see the approach he has with Flock, right? It differs from the approach he has with Yelena, from Zeke, right? All of them are different approaches. But that notion I brought up in part 1 of season 4, that no chance in hell Flock is going to go along with this plan of his, Zeke's plan, right? So he was upfront about his true intentions, right? Because he knew the things he had to say to get Flock on board, right? Just like he knew the things he had to say to Zeke, just like he knew the things he had to say to Yelena. And speaking of being upfront, he told Historia his intentions. So yeah, confirmation that indeed she had a prior conversation, right? And that kind of explains the look she had in episode 5 in the Path Realm. I mean, it was quite distinct. They kind of bring your attention to it as well. So yeah, she knew. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that she knew about this, right? And of course, as expected, she wasn't on board, right? She had a moral obligation to try and stop Eren from doing this, right? And she made all the points that that have been made. That yeah, a lot of innocent people are about to die, and they have no idea. They have no idea why they're about to die. And Eren knows this. It's been clear. Eren knows this, and this episode kind of reiterates that. He's so broken up about it, right? He's traumatized about it. That these people that are just like himself, that lost their freedom, innocent people, they're going to die. But even so, it is going to happen. It is going to go down. Ultimately, it's clear that Historia is not going to be able to change his mind. I mean, he even offers to kind of alter her memory if it's going to be something that's going to haunt her. But no, she doesn't. Of course, she doesn't agree to that. That whole concern I brought up about her potentially being used as a plot device. This scene kind of eases that a bit. I'm still not fully content just yet about her role in the rest of this. But that whole notion of him potentially being the father of the child, that what if possibility, right? Out of many possibilities, as of this point, no, I just don't think that's feasible at all. It really does appear that she herself took agency. She herself brought up this idea. She herself picked a partner, and that's that. That's how it really feels like at this point in time. I feel like there's nothing else really to it at this point in time, because the show itself, the storytelling itself, is not really hinting at anything. It really isn't at this point. And another thing that's kind of at play here is how Mikasa and Eren kind of look at this, right? How things have played out. Eren, right? He does ask the question. It's a really visually striking sequence, isn't it? It's like him in the clouds, essentially, right? Maybe that's his Titan form. POV, maybe, I don't know. It's a great sequence. It's a really great sequence. As these key moments are flashing through his eyes, back to season 1, or flashing in his mind, sorry. You go back to episode 1, him dreaming, coming to from that dream in episode 1, the dream, right? Him seeing the pigs from Ymir's flashback, right? Those pigs, man, the gate that was left open. Yeah. And there's this alley. There seems to be a child, and there's these older people around the child. His question is all about the beginning of all of this, right? The origin of all of this. How did all of this begin? But he almost immediately discards that idea, that notion, that question he's asking, because he accepts that this was meant to happen, right? That he was meant to do this, that this was the only path, that there wasn't any other possibilities. This was the only path. But then, of course, you have Mikasa, who's asking the same question, and she is really pondering how things could have played out differently if they had made a different choice here, a different choice there. Eren, on the other hand, accepts the deterministic nature of it all, right? That it was all predetermined. It was always meant to go down like this. He was always meant to do this. There was no other path he could have taken, even though that's not entirely true, right? Again, kind of goes back to that selfish nature of it all. Everyone has that selfish nature. As established in the story at this point, especially through Eren and Reiner. Season 4, episode 5, Declaration of War, important episode, man. One of the most important episodes of the series, especially for Eren Yeager and his mentality as well. That conversation that happens down below before he comes out and takes out Tiber. But yeah, I think that's about it. For this finale to season 4, part 2. Notice how the final shot is of a colossal titan trampling us, the audience, as well. So yeah, I really did think that was a great ending. I thought that was a much better finale, like I mentioned earlier, than part 1's finale. It kind of really wrapped up everything nicely, kind of brought it all back together, right? One final look at Eren Yeager, the humanity of Eren Yeager, right? And almost kind of like a goodbye to the Eren Yeager that all of us knew. Though, I'd certainly expect to see that Eren Yeager at some point again, right? I do expect some kind of heart-to-heart at some point near the conclusion of the series. I mean, in one of the final few episodes, perhaps. Again, much like Daenerys and Jon Snow. Okay, so if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length, perhaps, or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page. The link is in the description, in the pinned comment. Also, there's a link to my Twitter in the pinned comment and the description. Yes, for now, Shingeki is on a break till 2023. So yeah, maybe come join me on Twitter. Hopefully this time leading up to the final season, the final season, the conclusion in 2023, I can do some sort of recap and expectations and predictions, and hopefully that happens after I kind of get to rewatch the entire series. So of course that's months and months down the line, essentially. But I think it would be nice if I could do some kind of some more content leading up to the finale, or the final season, the conclusion. Again, I don't want to promise anything, but I certainly hope to do something leading up to it. But yeah, that's about it. That's about it for season 4, part 2 of Shingeki. Once again, a big thank you to everyone who joined me for this. New subscribers, old subscribers. Once again, thank you to the homie, to the legend, Sefazin, for keeping the comments airtight, keeping them spoiler free. It's a tough task. It is. So, and I know a lot of you appreciate his efforts, and he knows about this. And once again, a big thank you to him. He's certainly protected my experience of Shingeki. I would have been spoiled tenfold at this point if it wasn't for him. So, again, a big thank you to him. But thank you for all the support. Thank you for joining me. It's been my pleasure. Season 4, part 2, sharing my experience with all of you lovely people, be it new subscribers, old subscribers. And I certainly hope to see you in the, the build up towards the final season in 2023 and for the final season itself. But yeah, so it's a goodbye for now. Many of you might stick around, many of you might not see me again. Regardless, thank you for joining me and thank you for your time. It's highly appreciated, and I hope to see you again soon at some point. Until then, take it easy.